It seems that almost every movie gets a trilogy these days. Truth is, though, a number of hugely popular movies, each followed up by sequels, have yet to see a third installment join the franchise, and likely never will. These are the trilogies that will never be completed. Bringing a hilariously gruesome irreverence to the world of superheroes long before Deadpool made his silver screen debut. No, we don't count X-Men Origins Wolverine, and neither should you. Director Matthew Vaughn's adaptation of writer Mark Miller and artist John Romita Jr.'s Kick-Ass was a hit with critics and audiences alike, earning $48 million domestically and $97 million worldwide. Universal wisely played it safe, only spending $28 million on the sequel, but made a few critical errors in the meantime. The first being that it was released in 2013, a full 5 years after the original. The second was that directing duties were given to Jeff Wadlow, as Vaughn was occupied with X-Men First Class in 2011 and Kingsman: The Secret Service in 2014. Critics KO'd Kick-Ass 2 with a 32% tomato meter rating, a significant drop on the first movie, and it earned just $28 million domestically and $63 million worldwide. While Vaughn revealed his hopes of directing both a prequel and a sequel in 2015, he eventually stuck to the Kingsman series instead. Given Kick-Ass 2's diminishing returns and the several years that have passed, it's probably fair to say that Kick-Ass and company won't be making a return anytime soon. Before Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead made bank and AMC's The Walking Dead made history, Danny Boyle's 2002 hit 28 Days Later was the little undead flick that could. Critics lauded the movie upon its release, and audiences were generous too, delivering a $45 million domestic and $82 million worldwide take against a measly $8 million budget. Profits like that invariably spell a sequel, but it would be 4 years before 28 weeks later arrived in theaters. While Boyle passed directorial duties on to Juan Carlos Fresnadillo for the sequel, it still managed to garner a relatively warm critical reception. Alas, audiences were less enthused, as the $15 million budgeted sequel earned $28 million domestic and $64 million worldwide. That's still highly profitable, but it was also a 22% drop from the first film, despite costing twice as much. Even though the numbers were trending downwards, Boyle later told MTV there were a few ideas swirling about for a third film, though screenwriter Alex Garland said copyright issues with the rights holders to the original film were holding them back. However, in 2019, Boyle told The Independent that somebody had come up with a wonderful idea for a third film. Nobody said a word about it since, however, and for now it seems like the 28 Days trilogy is very much dead and buried. With a combined $1.2 billion domestic and $2.29 billion worldwide box office across all his movies, Quentin Tarantino can pretty much call his own shots.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
Still, one of his hardest sells was Kill Bill, a kung fu spaghetti western revenge thriller mishmash that was originally meant to be one 4-hour film but was wisely split into 2 releases. Both Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 were hits with the critics, and both made a decent amount at the box office, although Volume 2 saw a 14% drop on the first movie's takings. While the Kill Bill films were modest financial successes, Tarantino went over budget and over schedule on the movies, forcing him to cut a climactic beachside battle between the bride and Bill, and eventually having to miss the Cannes Film Festival. He revealed plans for Volume 3 in 2004, suggesting it would follow Vernita Green's daughter as she sought revenge against the bride, with the hope being that Tarantino would begin filming 15 years later. While 15 years seemed like an impossibly long time then, 2019 came and went with no Volume 3, and Tarantino conceded in 2012 that a third film was probably not happening. Probably not seemed to turn into definitely not when Uma Thurman called Tarantino out for a stunt that nearly killed her during filming on the first 2. They have apparently buried the hatchet since, however, and now Tarantino says Volume 3 is definitely in the cards. Believe it when you see it. Chinatown brilliantly mixed the film noir genre of the 1940s with the new Hollywood aesthetic of the 1970s and quickly became one of the definitive films of the latter decade. While its $29 million box office didn't break any records in 1974, the movie's 11 Oscar nominations and 1 win at the 1975 Academy Awards cemented its sterling reputation. While Chinatown is remembered as an all-time great today, however, its 1990 sequel has been practically forgotten. Jack Nicholson returned as Private Eye J.J. Jake Gittes in The Two Jakes, also stepping in for Roman Polanski as director for pretty obvious reasons. The Two Jakes did all right with the critics, though it didn't blow anyone out of the water, and its box office performance was truly atrocious, earning just $10 million. Nicholson told MTV in 2007 that a third film titled Gittes vs. Gittes would have been set in 1968, following Jake as he goes through a divorce. Given Nicholson effectively retired in 2010, however, it seems that this pulp detective take on Kramer vs. Kramer will probably never see the light of day.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Escape from New York introduced one of the most iconic characters ever conceived in the eye patch-wearing, smack-talking Snake Plissken, played with a rebellious swagger by Kurt Russell.
We'd make one hell of a team, Snake.
The name's Plissken.
While the film made a profitable $25 million worldwide on a $6 million budget in 1981, it wasn't the kind of breakaway blockbuster that demanded an immediate sequel. Carpenter and Russell focused on other projects for the rest of the 1980s, including their equally beloved collaboration Big Trouble in Little China. Meanwhile, Escape from New York's reputation continued to grow. So, in 1996, the duo returned for Escape from LA. Releasing a sequel to a cult hit 15 years after the original was a risky bet, especially with a $50 million budget, twice what the original film even made. Unfortunately, Escape from LA face-planted with critics and bombed with crowds, earning just $25 million worldwide, much less than the first movie after inflation is taken into account, and with 10 times the production budget to boot. While an Escape from sequel wasn't going to theaters, there were plans for a TV series in the early 2000s, although they never amounted to anything. A remake was also announced in 2015 with Robert Rodriguez set to direct, though the movie's screenwriter has more recently said that the project is still in development. Everyone knows that if you want to add prestige to your young adult movie franchise, you simply turn the final film into a two-parter. For a while, everyone seemed to be getting on board with the trend, from Harry Potter to Twilight to The Hunger Games. Of course, this was probably down to the fact that it's an incredibly easy way to make money, especially when you film both parts at once. And surely nobody would be foolish enough to only film part one of a two-parter, right? Enter the Divergent Series. The first movie managed $276 million worldwide on an $85 million budget, while the second made $295 million against a $110 million budget, though its domestic opening weekend and box office were smaller than the first. That should have been a clue, but Lionsgate still went full steam ahead on the series' two-part conclusion. This wasn't a great move. The Divergent Series, Allegiant, tanked with $66 million domestic and just $172 million worldwide. It was decided that spending the money to properly conclude the trilogy would be a waste, so the final installment was announced as a TV movie instead, before being abruptly cancelled. Still, you've got to give Lionsgate credit for releasing the first ever 2.5-film trilogy. The Wayne's World franchise is the most successful SNL film series ever, with both movies earning $169 million domestically and $231 million worldwide. Bringing in that much bacon usually spells more sequels, but instead we wound up with mediocre SNL spin-offs such as Superstar and The Ladies' Man, so what gives? Well, for one, Wayne's World 2 absolutely plummeted at the box office, earning $136 million less in 1993 than Wayne's World, a terrifying 76% drop in earnings. And while Paramount may have still been willing to produce Wayne's World 3, it sounds like the creative team just wasn't interested. Mike Myers left SNL in 1995 and went on to star in the hugely successful Austin Powers and Shrek franchises.
Layers!
Dana Carvey, meanwhile, starred in his own short-lived TV show, The Dana Carvey Show, starting in 1996. In 1993, Entertainment Weekly had reported that the ego-swelling success of Wayne's World is taking its toll on the relationship between Myers and Carvey, which started when Myers wrote a draft of Wayne's World 2 that included plenty of Wayne, but not a lot of Garth. Couple that with Carvey's medical issues, and it's no surprise the world never got to see Wayne's World 3. Still, the duo at least reunited for an Uber Eats commercial during Super Bowl 55, which is probably as close to a third film as we'll ever get. When it comes to box office bankability, Denzel Washington is the king of Hollywood. In the gritty Equalizer series, Washington plays Robert McCall, a former Marine who comes out of self-imposed retirement to take on Russian mobsters. The Equalizer and The Equalizer 2 earned similarly impressive numbers at the box office, though the sequel cost 29% more than its predecessors. As such, Sony Pictures may have been cautious about spending more on a hypothetical Equalizer 3 and potentially earning less. Worse still, Denzel Washington doesn't seem interested in franchises in general. In fact, Equalizer 2 was his first and, thus far, only sequel. One person who is interested, however, is director Antoine Fuqua, who told The Hollywood Reporter in 2018, "Personally, I'd love for it to happen. It would be great to do it again with Denzel. I'm looking forward to the Equalizer 3, if that happens." But it hasn't, and it doesn't look like it will, at least not on the big screen. CBS recently rebooted the series on which the movies were based, premiering the show right after Super Bowl 55 on February 7th, 2021. In this iteration, Robert McCall is now Robin McCall, with Queen Latifah stepping in for Denzel Washington because if you don't have the king, you get the queen instead. You may not know this, but there are actually two Adam Sandlers. One is the gifted actor of Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. The other is, well, Adam Sandler. Alas, most of Sandler's $5.5 billion in worldwide grosses have come from his comedy work, including the incredibly successful Grown Ups series. The first Grown Ups earned $272 million worldwide in 2010, and Grown Ups 2 made $247 million in 2013, making Grown Ups Sandler's highest grossing franchise, besides Hotel Transylvania, obviously. Even with the Grown Ups movies' all-star casts ballooning the budgets up to $70 to $80 million, they were incredibly profitable. But the franchise seems to have stalled. Maria Bello told Flickering Myth in 2016 that she'd love to come back, saying, "Boy, it's fun to work with those guys." On January 6, 2020, Sandler fanatic and comedy writer-producer Tom Sharpling even posted his unsanctioned script on Twitter, writing, "In April 2019, I wrote a script for Grown Ups 3. I was not asked to write it. It is the best thing I will ever do in my life, professional or otherwise." The script was a meta making of Grown Ups in which the various cast members are slowly killed off. Predictably, it went viral, and equally predictably, it also went nowhere. With Sandler busy making more Hotel Transylvania movies, a host of Netflix productions, and a number of more serious films, it's probably fair to say that this comedy megastar has grown out of Grown Ups. Video game movies are generally synonymous with the word awful, but for one brief moment it looked like the Mortal Kombat series would break the curse. And yes, obviously, 1995's Mortal Kombat is still bad, but it's at least bad in a fun kind of way. It also made a lot of money, earning $122 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. The studio rushed a sequel, which never turns out well, and despite its $30 million budget, Mortal Kombat Annihilation ended up looking like a sci-fi original. Its 2% tomato meter score is the second worst in video game movie history, while the $51 million worldwide was a horrible 58% drop in takings. Now, there's a franchise fatality for you.
Flawless victory.
New Line Cinema had been banking on at least 3 Mortal Kombat films, however, and signed Robin Shou, who played Liu Kang, to a 3-picture deal. Annihilation annihilated any chance of that happening. But a third film, reportedly titled Mortal Kombat Devastation, was apparently supposed to happen. The movie spent more than a decade in development hell before Warner Brothers purchased Midway Games, which owned Mortal Kombat, for $33 million. Rather than throw good money after bad, Warner Brothers relaunched the series with an R-rated reboot in 2021. Jim Carrey had pretty much the best year ever in 1994, starring in back-to-back-to-back hits Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. The Mask was the biggest hit of the bunch by far, earning $351 million at the box office. Incredible numbers for an ultra-violent C-list character from Dark Horse Comics. Despite The Mask's insane profitability, the only sequel was 2005's horrible misfire, Son of the Mask, which tanked with $59 million on a $100 million budget. Carrey wisely sat that one out, an unsurprising choice given his long-standing distaste for sequels. However, it sounds like the star may be open to putting back on The Mask, as he told comicbooknews.com in 2020, "It would depend on a filmmaker. I don't want to just do it. But I would only do it if it was some crazy visionary filmmaker. So granted, Carey sounds reluctant about the whole deal, but there were rumors in 2020 that Warner Brothers was considering both a female-led reboot more in line with the darker comic and 2 new Mask movies starring Carey. Since then, there haven't been any updates on this potential franchise, and until Carey warms to the idea, it's doubtful there ever will be. Both Basic Instinct movies drew in a bunch of money at the box office, with the first one earning $117 million domestically and $352 million worldwide in 1992, despite its mediocre critical reception. And while Strike While the Iron's Hot may not be a basic human instinct, it is Hollywood's mantra, making it all the more surprising that it took 14 years for Basic Instinct 2 to arrive on screens. Michael Douglas was out this time, but Sharon Stone returned as the psychotic novelist Catherine Trammell. While the first movie made Stone a star, however, the sequel probably killed any chance of her headlining a film again. It tanked with the critics and did nothing for audiences either, bringing in $35 million box office on a $70 million budget. You'd think that'd have killed the franchise Stone dead, but according to a 2006 Empire Online article, Stone was optimistic about a sequel, and she even hopes to direct. She said, "There's a script for the next part of the story, but I would like to direct it rather than star in it." According to a 2013 HuffPost article, Stone has changed her mind about not starring in the film and is still eager to give Trammell closure. In Crank, Jason Statham has to keep his adrenaline going to stay alive by any means necessary. In Crank 2 High Voltage, Statham's heart is replaced with a battery that needs constant jolts of electricity. What would have happened in Crank 3? Sadly, we'll never know. Crank cost $12 million and made $43 million worldwide. Cue sequel. Crank 2 High Voltage cost $20 million and made $35 million worldwide. So, game over, right? Well, co-director Mark Neveldine was confident the franchise would keep going, telling Empire Online in 2011, "Crank 3 is going to happen. The studios are really excited about it. It's just all about timing." 4 years later, Statham told "We got this covered. I'd love to do it. Neveldine and co-creator Brian Taylor have to get their heads together, and if they want to do it, then there's a conversation." In 2018, Taylor told the Movie Crypt podcast that given Crank 2's disappointing box office, it's got to be a great idea, something insane. Crank 3 should be as exponentially more up than Crank 2 as Crank 2 was with Crank 1. The Blues Brothers was one of the best comedies of its era, and Blues Brothers 2000 was among the worst SNL movies ever. Nearly 20 years separated these two movies, but given the sequel lacked John Belushi or, any redeeming value, it absolutely tanked, earning just $14 million at the box office. About 17 years later, commemorating the original's 35th anniversary, Dan Aykroyd told CBS News that if Universal ever wanted to make a third film, I have a story. Of course, but it involves handing it off to a younger generation. Aykroyd was even more emphatic in a 2015 interview with the Daily Mail, telling the outlet that the Blues Brothers will return for a DVD and video-on-demand special, with Jim Belushi stepping in for his late brother. Aykroyd said, "The focus will be on Elwood, helping find a new generation to lead the blues, and that idea is handing down to a new generation, finding a pair of girls who are 20, 21, and want to be the blues sisters." In a 2018 interview with ET Canada, Aykroyd even revealed his dream cast for this sequel, saying, "I like Lupita Nyong'o and I like Taylor Swift." Whether the Blues Sisters ever comes to pass, however, is pretty much anybody's guess. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite movie series are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.